Hello, my name is Naquita Coates, and I will be doing my trauma explanation around displacement as a result of sex trafficking. Kim is a 14-year-old girl. She's mixed race from a rural community in Maryland. Kim was missing for 4 months. It was discovered that she had been picked up by traffickers on her walk home from school. Kim has been able to speak about the overall experience, but struggles with the details of the abuse she experienced. She was forced to have sex with men, and if she refused, she was beaten. Kim reports that she did not fight off the men because, due to her small size, she was very easily overpowered. She cannot remember what any of the men that she was forced to have sex with looked like, but she does remember the kidnapper, or the sex trafficker, who she sometimes refers to as her ex. She says their relationship was serious, but she was aware that he had the same relationship with other women. Kim was unable to see any other women or girls because she was confined to a small room with only a child-sized mattress on the floor. She only spoke to her kidnapper and was unable to maintain any outside relationships while she was locked away. Since being home for about 2 months, Kim's mother reports that she has not been herself. Kim has been declining in school. Her performance is down. She's up all hours of the night. She's been coming home smelling like liquor, and everything seems to scare her. Kim has lost interest in maintaining her friendships and has stopped doing all extracurricular activities. She returned to school 2 weeks ago, but only agrees to go if she can be picked up and dropped off at the front entrance. Kim avoids men and therefore has been isolating herself in school by avoiding not only male teachers, but also male students. One day, her male gym teacher yelled at her to change her uniform. Kim began to cry out for help, startling everyone in the gym. The teacher helped her to her feet and had two female students escort Kim to the nurse. Kim was embarrassed, but more so she was afraid and didn't know where the girls were taking her. So she continued to scream out and cry for help for the entire walk to the nurse's office. Kim has not returned to school since this incident. Kim, you've been doing well going to school. I know it's really hard to feel safe here, especially since you were taken while you were leaving school. I'm sure it is going to take a long time for you to feel confident enough to walk down that road again. In fact, you may just opt to avoid it altogether. Trauma has a way of taking something very ordinary and turning it dark. It's okay to feel that fear, because your fear is valid. Something terrible happened to you, and there's no way we can change that now. But what we can do is understand how your trauma has changed you. I know you haven't been feeling yourself, and you do not really understand why your reactions are so intense to things that you seem to feel are so small. Well, being away for so long, as you were, you learned ways to survive, because that's what you did. You survived. You could not stop the men from coming into your room, but you were able to find little things to make it more bearable. In that situation, these things may have seemed very necessary and the only way to make it. So it makes sense that even now you still use these skills that you learned. They help you survive a very dangerous and very frightening situation. Let's talk about one of the things you did to survive. You would cry out as soon as a man would come into your room. That crying out was useful. In some cases, it would turn off the man and he would leave you alone. But in other cases, it would only upset the man and he would beat you and continue to do his business anyway. The crying out you did meant that you didn't mean that you were going to be safe, but it meant that there's a possibility that you just might be. It was a really big risk, but the reward was very great because you could have been left alone completely. When you're in school now, it's frightening to be around men. That's because every single social experience you've had for the past 4 months was with a strange and aggressive man. It's going to take some time to not feel like you're on edge whenever there's a man around. The incident with your gym teacher was scary. There was a big man yelling at you to change your clothes. And I bet that's very similar to some of the things the men would yell at you when you were in that room. Your reaction was justified because crying out could have been the very thing to save you from what could have happened next. I understand in gym class it's a little different, but still, if you're unaware, you're unaware. And it's okay to feel that fear. Trauma teaches us how to respond to our fear. For you, you cry out. And because we are people of habit, our responses are habitual. Like, have you noticed that when you go to your locker, you can open your locker without even thinking about your combination? It'll sit there for 2 seconds and your locker will be open because this is something you do so regularly. It's almost like muscle memory to you. You don't have to think about it. Crying out when a man is yelling at you or trying to approach you and you don't feel safe is a habit that you developed in those months that you were away. And it's something that you do now without even thinking about how serious the situation may or may not be. You can learn to cope with this because your trauma doesn't have to define you. But first, you have to understand what your trauma has done to you. Another response that we've seen to notice is that you've been isolating yourself from your friends, from your family, from strangers, from everyone. Trusting others is hard in general. You can never know what to expect from someone else. But for months, you knew nothing about any of the people you're around. You knew nothing about what they were coming to do. You knew nothing about where you were. And it's hard to have any kind of trust in that situation. And even though you had healthy and happy relationships with people like your mother and your friends here at school, it's hard to maintain those relationships because for 4 months, you were waiting on those people to come and rescue you. Even though they were here working hard, trying to find you, calling the radio station, all these other places, trying to get you home, you were not saved by them at the end of the day. At the end of the day, someone else had to come in and rescue you. And the people that you've learned to look at as your safety are not so safe anymore because there was a situation when they couldn't get to you. And I know it's hard to live with that, but in time, you may be able to rebuild that trust with those people. And as I said, we are creatures of habit. So now trust may be a hard thing for you to do. But even in the morning when you wake up and you reach for your phone to find out what you've missed, or when you wake up and you go to the restroom or you make your breakfast, these are all habits that you created over years and years. You've had the experience of having healthy relationships before. Now we just have to unlearn some of these very anxious responses of you feeling on edge, whether you're stuck in a state of having to decide whether to fight for yourself or to run away. It's not easy to tell our minds to shut off and not feel so scared and on alert. And it's even harder to have our bodies not feel so tense in these situations. But it does take time. And you do have a loving and supporting system that'll be able to work with you as we try to get you closer to controlling your trauma. And now Linda Ogden will explain her trauma explanation of displacement.
Hi, I'm Linda, and I'm going to talk about a 10-year-old girl named Sally who was abducted by a female and male sex trafficking team after she lost track of her mother in a very busy shopping mall. The female trafficker asked Sally if she was lost, and when Sally said that she was, the female trafficker said that she would help her. So Sally agreed to follow the female trafficker, but the female trafficker met her male accomplice near the back of the mall, and because Sally was small for her age, he was able to cover her mouth and carry her the short distance to his van behind the mall. Then they took her to a remote location and locked her in a basement with 3 other girls about her age. The man and the woman sexually trafficked all 4 girls. After 6 months, the police found the basement where the traffickers kept the girls, and they were all rescued. Sally's mother thought that the love of her family and friends would help Sally get past it, but 3 months later, Sally remained very fearful of everyone except for her family and immediate family, and She had very little appetite and was losing weight. She appeared sad no matter how hard everyone tried to cheer her up, and she screamed during her recurring nightmares, which woke Sally and her parents and her younger brother every night. In addition, Sally had panic attacks anytime she went outside, so she refused to go anywhere unless both her parents were with her. Fortunately, her school allowed her to take classes via the internet at home. Sally also was worried about the girls that she'd been imprisoned with, who had been from various other states, and they had all been returned, so she didn't know where they were or how they were. Sally's parents decided that she needed professional treatment for the trauma. Hi, Sally. Your mother told me about all the terrible things that have happened to you. You were hurt a lot by the man and woman who took you and the other men. Your mom said that you've had a really hard time since then, ever since you got back home. You've had lots of different feelings, some of them at the same time. Like, for instance, you might feel glad to see your mom, but at the same time, you're afraid to be near her. That might be because that woman said that she was going to help you, but then she didn't. She let you get hurt instead, and your brain thinks that that could happen again. You've probably even thought that some of your feelings, like happiness, are gone forever and will never come back. There are other people who have had these big, scary hurts too, and they don't feel the same way they did before that happened either. The big, scary hurts are called trauma. I'm going to explain how your brain and your body helped you get through those terrible things called trauma and how we can help them feel better now. When the man grabbed you at the mall, your brain told you to fight and try to run away, but he was a lot stronger than you. The woman who said she was going to help you actually helped the man put you into the back of his van. They took you far away to a place where you didn't think that anybody could find you. And after a while, you thought that that was never going to happen. So you felt hopeless and helpless. And feeling like that makes your body feel really heavy and makes it really hard to move. I'm sure that you cried a lot. After you were there a long time, you probably thought that no one would ever find you. When the man who took you away and the other men he brought there did bad things to you, it might have felt like you went somewhere else in your mind, far away from your body and from them. Maybe after a while, you didn't even feel it when they tried to hurt you. Even though you were still very sad, your brain worked very hard and found a different way to think about it so that you could survive. Every time the man went upstairs and locked the door to the basement, you couldn't go to sleep because you were afraid that he or one of the other men would come back and hurt you or one of the other girls again. You stayed awake as long as you could and listened very carefully in case they did come back that night because you were always afraid of being hurt again. If you heard any noise, you felt your body jump a little bit inside because your brain was warning you that they might be coming. The same thing happens now anytime you hear a noise that reminds you of being there. You would finally fall asleep, but you probably had nightmares about all the terrible things that were happening to you. Sometimes, when the man or woman came back downstairs to the basement, you might have been glad to see them in a way, because they were the only ones who gave you and the other girls food and water when you were locked in that basement. Maybe they were even nice to you sometimes. You might have done whatever they told you to do because you thought that maybe they would keep being nice to you or they wouldn't hurt you. That was your brain again, trying to help you keep things from getting worse. Your brain is still waiting and listening carefully to hear them coming, even though you are not in that basement anymore. Since the police rescued you, you feel better than when you were in that basement and being hurt by those men, but it's still not good. You look very sad and tired right now. And I'm sure that you still feel like it's very hard to move. No matter what your mother or anyone else does to try to help you feel better, you don't laugh or even smile. Your mother said you only sleep a little bit, and when you do sleep, She hears you screaming during the nightmares that you still have. When you are awake, you feel very afraid of people outside of your family, even the ones you trusted before the man and woman took you away. Sometimes you have pain in your head or your belly and your skin is itchy, but the doctor can't find anything wrong and nothing helps you feel better. This is because your body hasn't had time to heal from all the pain and sadness. It's still stuck inside you. Your brain is kind of stuck too. It feels like you're still back there in that basement, and your brain is still trying to help you survive, like it did when you were there. So it can't relax yet. It might take a while to help your brain relax and know that you have survived, but I think that you and I can do it together.